Here is a short guide for working in Mexico. Mexico is in North America, bordering the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. Bordering countries are Belize, Guatemala, and the United States. It is about 3 times the size of Texas. It's actually very large, although many people don't think that it's that big. There are high, rugged mountains around the center of the country. Low coastal plains are also around that area. Most of the country is desert, especially in the north, and the coasts are humid with white sandy beaches. Mexico is home to several volcanoes, including Popocatépetl. It is the largest in Mexico and measures 5,426 feet. The population of Mexico is around 123,200,000 people. There are foreigners living in all parts of Mexico, especially in Mexico City, in parts of Quintana Roo where Cancun is, also in small towns like San Miguel de Allende in Guanajuato. Many Americans move to Mexico to retire. Others open businesses. Europeans or Americans move to Mexico to study on foreign exchange programs or to teach languages, especially in Mexico City. There are approximately 20 million people living in Mexico City, in the nation's capital. The official language of Mexico is Spanish. There are various indigenous languages that are still spoken today, especially in rural areas by small portions of the population. An example of one of these languages would be Quechua. During times of the Roman Empire, the Romans controlled what we know as present-day Spain. They brought Latin, which Spanish developed from Latin in Spain, and then Spain conquered Mexico and brought Spanish to Mexico. If you are looking to learn Spanish while in Mexico, most cities in Mexico have language schools where you can study Spanish as a second language. You can also find other languages that they might teach at those schools, like French or German, even Chinese or Japanese, and they often have native teachers. If you are going to live in the country for an extended period of time, it's recommended that you learn the language. Mexicans appreciate this gesture. Even if people that you work with speak English, they might receive you as a more genuine person if you try to learn their language. The president of Mexico is Enrique Peña Nieto. He's not entirely too popular in Mexico right now among his people. There are several political parties in Mexico. It's considered a presidential republic. It has a bicameral national Congress similar to that of the United States, and the president chooses his cabinet members. Mexico has 31 states. Its official name is United Mexican States. Each of those states has a separate governor and a state political system similar to the United States, and each city has a mayor. The capital of Mexico is Mexico City. One of the more recent political issues in Mexico is called the gasolinazo. Since January 1st of this year, gas prices nearly doubled. This causes prices of everything to rise, including food and transportation. It has really enraged people, and as a reaction, people have taken to protesting around the country. They have done this by blocking highways. Others have grouped together to enter stores and steal anything from microwaves to washing machines to motorcycles, and they have even burned down several gas stations in the Republic. One of the more recent political issues in Mexico is called the gasolinazo. Since January 1st, with the election of Trump, there has been a lot of outrage from the people. Many people propose to stop consuming American products as a way to protest. Also, Mexicans that used to travel to the United States on vacation or that would have liked to go on vacation in the United States have stopped visiting the United States. They prefer to go to places inside of Mexico instead of spend their money in the United States. This is causing tensions between the two countries, and it could cause tensions in business relationships. If it is brought up, it is best to try to avoid this topic. With the looking from the outside, many other nations might perceive Mexico as a very dangerous country. Most of the violence in the country occurs in the northern border cities with the United States, in very, very poor areas, and it is scattered around cities. Before moving to Mexico, you should do your research about the city and find where the safest places to live are. If you are going with a company, the company is sending you to Mexico, it's most likely that they will be in charge of making sure that you are safe and they wouldn't let anything happen to you. Looking from the outside, there are a few things that you can do to make sure that you are safe. If Mexicans have a car, they usually lock it up at night in a garage or inside of the gates of their houses. Car theft has been a problem for years, but most theft happens at night. Around houses, there are tall gates or cement walls. If you live in an apartment building, there might be a security guard. If you live in a colonial community, there will probably be security. It is not recommended to go out at night and walk alone. It's best to go accompanied, or if you are going by car. If you don't have a car, you can use Uber instead of taking taxis. Many people have found that to be a safer option. You should not have your wallet or cash visible in your pockets. Pickpocketing is popular in Mexico. It is best to use an over-the-shoulder bag to hold your belongings, and it's best if that bag is leather. For robbers, it is easier for them to steal things out of your bag if it is made out of cloth, for example, because they can cut it open and steal what is inside. And last but not least, a general rule for most travelers is to not get associated with the wrong people, and nothing bad will happen to you. There are a few things that according to the CIA, Mexico's $2.2 trillion economy has become increasingly oriented toward manufacturing in the 22 years since the North American Free Trade Agreement entered into force. Per capita income is roughly 1/3 that of the US. Income distribution remains highly unequal. Tourism is also one of the biggest markets in Mexico. Many people vacation in Mexico's Riviera Maya or on its Pacific coast. Approximately 83% of the Mexican population is Catholic. Because of this, many families previously didn't use methods of contraception, and they had very large families with up to 10 children at times. Now we live in a more open-minded society. Many people are using contraception, and the average is around 3 children per family. You may receive religious holidays in Mexico. Even though they are religious holidays, they are given as vacation days. In households of religious families, you might see murals and statues of saints, Mary, or Jesus, especially around Christmas time. Even if you are not Catholic or not religious at all, most Mexicans will be respectful of your beliefs. It is estimated that 55% of the population attends regular church services on a weekly basis. Another 19% does so once a month. Mexico, from the outside, may still be considered a patriarchal society, and that's probably not far from true. Traditionally, men were the providers and women cared for the children in the home. This isn't an uncommon practice to see in present-day Mexico, although there are many women that are studying and joining the workforce. Having children and raising a family can be very important to some Mexicans, both men and women. On average, the majority of women have children in their early 20s. According to Women in Culture, Business, and Travel, the role of women in urban Mexican society has undergone a profound change over the last 25 years due to a couple of major factors. The increasing number of women attending school in general, graduating from high school, and obtaining college degrees, and the rapid growth in the female workforce in Mexico, with more women between the ages of 20 and 24 taking jobs before starting families. It is legal for companies to ask for only men or only women applicants when looking for employees. In the business sector, there are definitely more men than women, but it is not uncommon to see a company specifically looking for women to fill positions. Many companies are trying to integrate more women to have a more varied workforce. It is important to know how to greet someone in Mexico depending on your sex and the sex of the other person. If you are a man and you are greeting a man who is your friend, it is best to give a handshake, maybe a brief hug. If you are a woman, you would be expected to give them a kiss on the cheek and a brief hug. If you are greeting a woman who is your friend, if you are a man, a kiss on the cheek and a brief hug is acceptable. For a woman, since it is your friend, you would give her a kiss on the cheek and a real hug. To greet a coworker, it is best to say hello. This practice of kissing and hugging doesn't really apply in the workplace. If you are greeting someone important in a business setting, is when you would give them a handshake, whether they were men or women. And you should try to avoid any type of physical touching, hugging, touching the shoulder. If you are in public, you go to a store, a bank, a mall, you would want to say buenos dias or buenas tardes before asking them to help you. It is considered rude if you walk up to somebody and just start demanding that they give you something. And if it is cleaning staff, maybe cleaning staff for your apartment or your house or inside of your school, your job, you should say buenos dias or buenas tardes, and after that you can leave it as that. You aren't expected to converse with cleaning staff. If you are speaking Spanish with someone that is working in a public place, you should address them as usted. Any important business contact should also be addressed as usted. The people that you can address as tu would be friends or co-workers that are on the same level as you and that you are familiar with. You should always address your boss with usted. And if you are the boss, and someone addresses you as tú, you should request that they speak to you using usted, because it can be seen as a lack of respect and can give you a bad reputation in the office. Mexico has progressed in being more open-minded and allowing women to hold important positions within the business sector. Some men may react badly towards women that are speaking strongly or too often. This, of course, is not always the case, but it is important to be aware that it can happen. They may not accept a woman's ideas, and they may frown upon women being in positions of power. It is important not to interrupt other people when they are speaking, and if you disagree with someone, it is best to say things like, I understand where you're coming from, or I think our best option would be. People coming from individualistic cultures can come off really strong, and it can be offensive for Mexicans that are not used to strong reactions of people from individualistic countries. In a business setting, Mexicans will dress very elegantly. You will be expected to dress the same. Men should wear black, blue, or gray dress pants and button-up shirts accompanied with formal shoes. Hair should be well groomed. Wearing khakis is less accepted here. In an important business meeting, you should wear a suit and a tie. Women can wear dresses or skirts as long as they are appropriate. They have to probably be at least knee length, and it would also be acceptable to wear dress pants and a button-up shirt. Most women wear high heels every day. If you feel uncomfortable wearing high heels, you can probably wear flats as long as they're formal and look appropriate. In a business setting, Mexicans will dress very elegantly. You will be expected to dress the same. Men should wear black, blue, or gray dress. Everyone says don't drink the water in Mexico. This is not bad advice. Most of the water in most cities is actually potable water, but it doesn't taste good. This is because the plumbing systems to transport this water have not regularly been updated or maintained. Most people buy what are called garrafones. They are like 5-gallon jugs. You save the jug when you go back to the store. You leave the empty jug when you buy a new one. The tap water is okay to make coffee or to cook with. It just doesn't taste good, which is why people prefer not to drink it. Mexico has a reputation for having food that will make you sick. Remember that Mexican people would also get sick if the food was contaminated, not just tourists. Kitchen staff are usually careful, trying not to contaminate food so that they can keep their clientele. If everyone got sick, no one would go back to the restaurant. In some tourist areas, hotels might even import vegetables from the United States. If you are living in Mexico and you buy vegetables to cook, you can wash them in a solution of iodine that they sell in supermarkets. You'll find them in little tiny bottles that they will have right next to the vegetables. This isn't necessary, but if it makes you feel more comfortable, you can definitely do that. Mexico has a If you are sensitive to spicy food, it is best that you ask, because oftentimes you will order food and it will be super spicy, even though you could never imagine that something would be as spicy as it is. A lot of times foreigners get sick from eating food that is too spicy, not necessarily from contaminated food. A lot of food in Mexico is also very condimented, so you have to be careful by knowing what you can and can't take as far as food goes. At a business meeting with somebody for the first time, you should give them your business card. If you are visiting the country, you should have your business cards translated into Spanish. Even though they might speak English, it is an appreciated gesture. When you are entering a room for a social gathering as opposed to business, it is customary to greet everyone in attendance. Mexican firms observe tight hierarchies, and many companies are family-owned. At formal business meetings, the top people will be introduced to each other, but not those of lower ranks. Many Mexican government officials carry business cards that will only have their name, and if they want to contact you, they will call you. This practice is done to prevent unauthorized use of the official's name at a business reference. As a business relationship builds, visitors may find that the greetings and departure rituals become more affectionate. Handshakes at this point may also include a pat on the shoulder or back. At first, you should be more hesitant. Afterwards, it would be more acceptable. Foreigners used to more personal space from more individualistic countries may not be used to this. Business meetings may be taken to a restaurant to discuss business plans. It would most likely be a very classy restaurant where you could have steak or something like that. This is to show off a little bit. You could order beer or wine during this type of meeting. It's probably even encouraged. And most often the boss will offer to pay the bill. So if you are the boss, make sure that you pay the bill. Business meetings may be taken to a restaurant to discuss business plans. Mexican companies have really high standards. They will expect your utmost attention with everything that you do. It can be very demanding, more so than in other countries. You may be asked to carry a company cell phone or answer emails when you are not working, and you might have to put in extra hours, and you may or may not be compensated for that extra time. With the economy being in a bad state, there are plenty of people that can take your job, and they are not very hesitant to look for new staff. Obviously, there's a lot to learn about any culture. This isn't all the information that you may need to know about Mexico, but it's definitely a good start. I hope that these details help you. Anything that you don't know, never be afraid to ask.